Henry,
Hey fellas, how we doing?
We're
we're
really
doing
well.
good. Well, we're pretty good, aren't we?
We just did 2 songs. One of them we made absolute fools of ourselves.
Yep.
So,
So that's pretty good.
It can only get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you, my
I
friend?
mean, some celebrities, man. I watch all your guys' videos. I've seen a bunch.
We are the internets from the internet.
The
idiots from the internet.
The internet's
I'm out.
doing it.
Cheers.
See ya. Adios.
So nice to meet you.
You probably only watch our shit though because we check out all of your songs because we are in fact big fans of you guys.
It's true.
Well, that's how it started, but then I became a fan, and now I watch shit as well. You know,
This is
we
so
should hang
cute.
out this weekend.
I'm down. Let's do it.
That's fun. Hey, congratulations on your album. That's what we're going to talk about. And I'm just going to jump straight into that because it's a fucking belter.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate that.
It's so good.
This is gonna sound like blowing smoke, but I need to say this sounds like this album is one of the most well-rounded and most accomplished albums I have heard in like the last year. Easily, man. Like
Oh, thanks, mate.
I was blown away, dude. And like, because obviously I've enjoyed you guys for years now, but this was a weird one because it was one of those cases where you drop the singles and it's like, oh, this is a good song. Oh, this is a good song. Oh, this is a good song. And you have your favorites. You have some that don't quite hit as hard or hit way harder. This was a weird one for me because it was one of those albums where listening to it in full, it made me feel like I'm stuck in the old school way of wanting to listen to an album from start to finish. Because it was just such a well-rounded and well thought out album. Like it's such a journey. It's so sick.
Thank you, mate. That's really nice of you to say that. That's kind of a big sort of goal of ours, really, was to make it like a real album experience as opposed to sort of singles. Because I'm with you. Like I try to still listen to records rather than kind of songs. I mean, it doesn't always work that way because of like streaming and stuff. But yeah, you know, when you hear a record that's sort of conceived as a record. It's great, isn't it? Just kind of getting to put a vinyl on and listen to like track one and flip it and do the other side and all that.
I have a prediction. I've lost my own train of thought here. What's going on in your tangent, so I'm with it. I reckon we're going to get more people leaning towards the writing albums for the purpose of like the vinyl listening experience. It's having such a resurgence, and I know for me, like I've been buying all the albums that come out that I really like on vinyl, so I can then sit and listen to it, and I make my wife listen with me. She hates me for it, but like start to finish, because that's the experience that I feel, and we've talked about this before, that I feel like the artist wants and they put into it. I really like having that. I feel like we're going to get more of that as it becomes more and more commonplace again for people to listen on vinyl. People are going to kind of go on that journey. Further than what you just said, though, I forgot that I'd heard some of the songs. Like I got it and I was like, this song's sick. And I was like, wait, we reacted to this song. But because it kind of came on in the middle of the album, I was just so in the middle of listening that I'd sort of forgotten that I'd heard it before. That's fucking cool. That's a great thing. Because normally by the time I get to the singles, I've listened to a bunch. I'm like, oh yeah, skip this one. I've heard it a ton.
Yeah.
Whereas that just didn't happen for me on this one. I like just played it straight through a few times.
Oh, I'm so pleased that you said that. Thank you, guys. The others would be absolutely made up that you said that. Yeah,
don't tell them.
I won't. No. Yeah, no, it's. I agree with you. I do think there'll be a bit more of a resurgence of that. I think it's always been there, but I think maybe a way to look at it is to kind of think of like how film is split off into kind of like movies that are made for people who would just kind of really want the minutiae of movie making or the cinema experience. And then there's the other side of it, which is where it's like, I guess, more made for like streaming services, and that's okay too. It's just like a different kind of approach, I suppose.
Where do you sit in what you want to experience out of your music personally?
I don't really listen to a lot of playlists and stuff, and I don't know. I'm just quite used to hitting the like album tab on my Spotify and just kind of doing it record by record. But I suppose it does depend on the genre, because some stuff is a bit less album based. I listen to a lot of electronic music, and a lot of the time that isn't quite as sort of, you know, an artist might only have like an album that they made 5 years ago, and then they've just been kind of doing a lot of singles and EPs since then. So, but I think with guitar bands, I tend to kind of try to digest stuff by projects, and the way that Spotify is set up, it actually, for bands, I think it kind of slights you if you ever do just release a single and don't, it's not part of a wider project, you know? You have to really like dig to get to those like some of the EPs we've done, it takes fucking ages to try and like find that on Spotify because it's kind of buried amongst all the...
Yeah, you have to go to albums, singles and
yeah.
Hey, you just touched then on your own taste, and I think that ties me into my next question, which was going to be on the influences, because I feel like you can really hear the influences quite strongly on this album.
Can I say the D word?
No.
Can I say?
You can say the D word. I know what you're gonna say.
You know, you're gonna say the D word.
Oh, you weren't there when I did the Flying Birds track.
Is that? Oh,
cool.
No. Clearly, there's a little bit of a Deftones
for sure. Yeah, definitely.
But vocally, we haven't really heard some of this tone from you in previous records. What was you just really stole my question here. That's fine. What was the catalyst for that? Talk to me about your vocal performance on this album.
I guess it kind of goes quite naturally with the music that we're making, and we've, in terms of stuff like screamy stuff, we've kind of like dabbled with that a little bit. And then a song like Sliding Doors was kind of the first time we were like, we might as well just do it, jump in, not just dip our toes in, you know.
Yeah.
And then I suppose I think of this album as kind of like a pop album, really. It's just kind of wearing very 90s alternative clothes, but a lot of the kind of vocal stuff is stuff that I've explored with previously, and I guess just got a lot more comfortable doing, you know, like the Torah was still kind of written in the pandemic, so this is kind of the first album where we've already toured a lot of the kind of, I guess, newer era of Boston Manor.
Sure.
And been able to like experience kind of working with those songs live, because the songs changed so much over the years that you play them live.
Yeah.
So I was kind of just bringing a lot of that to the table when recording stuff, but it's all part and parcel of like, I guess, how we've been trying to like conceive this record, and yeah, we would definitely wear our heart on our sleeves. I'm not offended by that or anything. I think like we've always kind of, I mean, if you actually go back and look at interviews of us on our first record, we've been talking about Deftones for a long time as an influence. But, you know, beyond that, definitely a lot of other like 90s and noughties alternative stuff. And
yeah, kind of I considered it when I was listening to it. I was like, oh, this is like probably the most well executed modern alt rock album that I've heard, because it does take from those, like obviously the Deftones influences, but I hear a lot of other sort of stuff in there. Like I hear a little bit of like Nothing But Thieves in there. I even got like just through some of the sounds that you use sonically, and I guess the sort of like the keys that you use and things like that in the songs and the production. Even like there's like a darkness that kind of almost reminded me of like some Marilyn Manson stuff.
I thought you meant the darkness for a second then, and I was just gonna
say
there's
just a somber darkness through it as well, but it's still kept like kind of uplifted by your very, I say this in the nicest way possible, pretty vocals.
Thank you.
Yeah, but no, I love it, man. I think it's so great, like being able to hear so many different influences and do something that is weirdly nostalgic, but also refreshingly new.
Yeah, I think there's like like, it's interesting what you say about like it being an alternative record, because I really do think it is like an alt rock / pop record, like whatever you want to call it. But I feel like there's a tendency with like a lot of like, for lack of a better term, alt rock bands or bands that kind of fit into that wider umbrella that are very current, to kind of go very, very sort of mix their influence, which is older, with kind of more modern techniques and production styles. And that kind of yields like a very specific sound, I think. Whereas we sort of try to keep things like pretty old school in terms of the just the tools that we were using, and it's just a big guitar record, and we spent so long, I say we, the royal we then spent so long working on the guitar sound and the kind of way of getting that kind of uplifting sound that you're talking about without it being like super happy and cheerful. Like we can still kind of
in a major key.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it always just sounds a bit twee and a bit lame when we do that for us. But that kind of darkness that you're talking about is definitely like the Boston Manor sound, if you kind of were to try and categorize that across all our records.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you keep our sound or expand on our sound, but it also make a uplifting record? It's like a really hard balance to get, and that's kind of what we spent so long trying to do. It's really difficult, but I think we largely achieved that. I think, yeah, but it's kind of just a love letter to the guitar, this record. I'm so like buzzing on what they managed to do, and I'm
the riffs and tones are fantastic. Like they are really good. Yeah.
Well, they built a pedal for it just to get sound. They call it the Bad Machine, and it did so well that they partnered with this like pedal manufacturer, and we used it on the whole record. Like it's all over this thing, and it did so well that we've made it, so you can buy it now, which is pretty cool.
That's right.
Shameless plug there, but if people are nerds and really want to get into it, that does
link in the description.
Use Henry 1 for 20% off. No, they use it live and stuff, and it's pretty gnarly. Like I didn't know how it was gonna go, but it just works so great for that kind of thing they were trying to do.
Yeah, so I also want to congratulate you. You're the first person to use the word twee in any time on this channel, and that was delightful. I really enjoyed that.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate it. Fancy.
Was the pedal created before the studio, or was it in the writing process? Because obviously when you're writing songs, or I don't know how you guys do it, if you're in a room jamming together or whatever, and you're coming up with songs and sounds and they sound a certain way, or you're sending stems to each other or riffs to each other, even via voice note, obviously then once you get into the studio and put it down, you've probably, I'm sure, already got vocal melodies in your head. But when you start hearing like a different sort of sonic element to these guitars and things like that, does it then put any pressure on you to sort of rethink what you're doing?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, to be fair, the songs kind of have like two life cycles. Like there's the demo that we write before the studio, and then the song normally changes loads in the studio because we kind of like write a bit as we go in the studio. But this and Datora, we approached recording differently. Like we broke the sessions up into loads of kind of 2-week blocks, and then they had breaks in between, so we could kind of like go away, and then if something wasn't working, we could like rewrite bits and kind of amend bits and stuff. And that was over a period of like a year, so that we made the album. So it was kind of the lines kind of blurred really between writing and recording. It was kind of all the same thing, but the pedal arrived actually on day one in the poster prototype, arrived just circumstantially day one of us being in the studio. It just turned up at the studio, and we were like, sick, plugged it in, like, okay, there we go. Awesome.
That's cool. How has your emotional connection to the song changed over the period of writing the album to this point? Because you said it's been done over the last 2 years. That's a long time from writing the first fruition of where you see the songs to now having them being about to release. Has that changed for you, like your emotional connection to the songs?
I guess so. There was times when it's quite frustrating, I remember. And it often can be, like when you sort of like trying to find that first sort of thread to follow when you kind of in the just like mass demo stage at the start. And with this record, we had such a kind of like a mission statement and a bit of a blueprint, which we don't typically do. Normally it's kind of like, well, you start writing and then you see what the record's going to be, and that starts taking shape later on. But because of the whole like double 2-part album thing, there was already that kind of this is largely what it's going to be thing. And so we wrote more songs for this record than any other album. We probably wrote like 250 songs for it. So there's definitely
Did you mispronounce that?
Yeah, you said 250, right?
Yeah, 250. But those aren't kind of like completed like wicked songs. Like loads of them are just like dog shit riffs and a crap chorus that we're like, yeah, there it is. But so yeah, songs might be a bit of a generous
term. Yeah.
But if you were to look at the big Dropbox with everything in it, there's probably like a good 250 to maybe even more kind of files in there. And some stuff, got like mashed together to make like one song out of 2 or 3 of them, and then a lot of them largely just got thrown in the bin. But there was definitely sort of, a couple months would go by and you just be like, it just nothing's really hitting. We keep kind of writing stuff and we're just not quite getting there yet. And it's the way it usually is. You hit one thing and it's just a bit of like a bit of a breakthrough, and then sort of a flurry of better ideas will come for a while. And so it was definitely like the longest process, and there was times when I was like, oh God, this record is just our Everest. But with this one, like by the time we were in the studio, I was like, oh, this is definitely the best record we've ever made. Like, it was already quite clear. We were like onto something really, really great. And we've had this album in kind of its current incarnation, excuse me, earlier mixes of it for about a year now. So we've been listening to this record for a long time, and I still love it, man. I've not gotten bored of it. And I can't say that about every record that we've made. I'm so happy with it, and
yeah,
I'm just a fan of it. You know, like I hope other people like it, but I just enjoy listening to it and playing it. It's a nice position to be in.
How much of it have you had the chance to play live so far?
As of 2 days ago, about a third of it, because we've been practicing. I say practicing. We've been playing some of them ahead of this big kind of UK headliner we're about to do, and we've had some side shows in Australia, so we've been using that as like a sort of chance to kind of run through the set, which has been really cool. Interesting, kind of getting some feedback on the songs from people.
What has the feedback been like?
Yeah, really good. Like, I kind of wish that we're playing Phonics, and I kind of wish we'd made that a single now, because that's had a lot of like really positive feedback. But yeah, you know, like Horses in a Dream's like a super different song to play than say like Sliding Doors or like Foxglove or something. So it's also about us kind of like getting used to the feeling of those songs on stage, and
sure,
how you kind of make it sound as good as it can be,
and how they tie that into the rest of the set, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What out of the new songs that you haven't played are you looking forward to playing the most? Is there one that you really just, you know, with the album's release, you're just really keen to start throwing in the set and you haven't had a chance to yet?
Yeah, I man, kind of all of them, you know. Like I really am so hyped on them. I'd like to play DC Mini. I think would be a cool kind of less obvious like single kind of song to play. But Why I Sleep as well. We're not playing that on this September tour, unfortunately, but we'll definitely start to bring it into rotation, I think, later through the like album cycle or whatever. But I just love that. I really love the riff in that song. So I'm excited to play that. But yeah, kind of, I know it's a bit of a cheap answer. I hate sounding so like, I don't want to come across as like smug. Do you know what I mean? Like
everyone hates you now.
But yeah, someone that just comes on and just brags about how sick he thinks his record is.
No, but like
that's what we want. I don't want people to come and be like, we've done better.
You got to be proud about, you know, like, and it's also a hard thing for artists to be transparent and be honest and say, look, there's things we've done in the past that I don't vibe with anymore, that I'm not super proud of. So you got to be honest on all accounts. And look, I agree with you. I think it's your best album. I also want to know what the secret is to making so many 6 and 7 minute long songs feel like they're no longer than like 3 minutes.
Get out of my fucking head. Because I was literally about to ask that.
Because it's wild, man. I looked at the track listing in the Times for the songs. I'm like, God, there's some fairly long songs here.
Yeah, first 4 tracks are all like over 5 minutes. It's like,
and I'm like, then
that can't be right.
The album's already finished. What the fuck, man? Like, I listened to it twice, like in a row today. Yeah.
Oh, sick, man. Thank you so much. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like we had a music video shoot to drive down to. This is like the total opposite side of the country. Like a month or so ago.
Took 20 minutes.
We rented a little van and just drove down, and we just rather self-indulgently for a bit of fun, we just like listened to our entire discography. It's like a 6-hour drive, so we were like, let's just listen to the very first EP and just work our way through it. We had time to kill, and it was pretty crazy listening to some of those early songs that I've not listened to in so long and being like, how the fuck did we play these songs? They're all like so fast, and there's like it sounds like 5 people are playing a different song, and they're all like 6 minutes long. It's like so exhausting to listen to, like never mind play. So I definitely think like if you listen to how simpler the song gets, we're definitely kind of using cheat codes as we go through to kind of make things easier on us. Like George was just chilling behind the kit compared to what he used to be playing.
I think you're not alone in that. I think a lot of bands start with being like, how complicated and how sick will this be? People will be amazed.
Young and full of energy. Let's
like,
go.
I can't sing that quickly.
Yeah, that was like 11 years ago. I'm no spring chicken now, fellas. I can't be doing that kind of shit on stage anymore, you know.
You look young and handsome, if that helps.
Thanks, brother. Right back at you, mate.
I shaved. I'm 12 now. So Hey, I want to talk a bit because you just reminded me then on going and listening to like a whole discography. Have you done that with any other artists?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of artists that I'm like huge fans of their like whole.
But I mean, like, start from the very first thing they've recorded and then just go on, I'm listening to just this.
Oh, okay. Like,
I've done this recently.
Yeah, maybe not, That's a good point.
It's fun.
You'd probably tend to just be like, just listen to like X, Y, and Z records, but you maybe not in chronological order. Yeah, I don't know. I probably haven't done that. Maybe I should.
I recommend doing it. I tend to be an idiot and do it with bands that have like 7 albums and being like, fuck, that's gonna take me a couple of days. But it is such a cool experience for bands that you love and that you know, because I feel like you find some hidden gems you're not that aware of.
Yeah.
So that's my.
Maybe I should do that with like because I suppose it's probably more rewarding if it's a band that's kind of like changed a lot.
Yeah.
Like if you got the Radiohead listen when they were like a Britpop band through to now, that'd probably be pretty crazy.
There's some Bring Me the Horizon. And you go from being like just deathcore to now stadium. And it is, you're like, holy fuck, how is that the same band? But as you listen to it back to back, you actually follow it along. And like, I did Steely Dan. That was sick. Steely Dan was wicked. There was like a really cool ride to go along and follow as they went. So what would you do?
I feel like the Bring Me one, I might try and do that. I listened to their like EP quite recently and the first album as well. And I'm like, man, it's pretty crazy that even when they were doing that deathcore thing, they were really good at that as well.
Yeah.
Like I don't really listen to a lot of that type of music anymore, but I have over the years. And for that specific subgenre, they were just mint at that as well.
I feel like everything they've done has been the best of that thing. Like they went from that when they did like Suicide Season, that was like the best of metalcore at the time. They gave bands like Architects. Architects got big because Sam was on that song with them, and that was like a foot in the door. They've like ushered in new eras every time they've done it, which I think that's a cool thing that maybe they don't get enough credit for.
With great power comes great responsibility,
That's true.
So upon listening to your entire discography front to back, did you find any hidden gems where you're like, oh, this song, like I need more to give myself more credit for this was much better than I thought? And were there any that you went, oh my God, this was fucking horrible?
Both, yeah. There was some stuff on the first album that I was like, oh, I completely forgot the song existed. But like for that kind of type of music, I was like, oh, this is kind of a good version of, I see what we were trying to achieve with this song. And I think this is, whilst I wouldn't make music like this anymore, it's quite a good attempt at that thing.
Sure.
And then, like, we give Glue a hard time, probably sometimes a bit too much of a hard time, but I think my issue with that album is that I think it's so, like, we're trying so many things, but there isn't that kind of like cohesion, which I think we've managed to get better at achieving on like a whole project-wide thing. Going back to kind of like what we were talking about at the start of this conversation, like trying to make that kind of whole album that has that through line and that kind of, I don't know, like sonic aesthetic that means that if you're kind of playing with genre, you still feel like you listen to the same record.
Yeah.
And I think that we kind of maybe tried a bit too much stuff on that record, and I would probably maybe cut that track list down a bit as well, make it a bit of a tighter album. But that's kind of then you get into the whole butterfly effect thing of like, well, if we did that, maybe we wouldn't have made the next record the same way. And it's probably not that useful really to spend a lot of time looking at other stuff. I mean, if I had my way, I'd be the band we are now straight away, but that it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, exactly. You got to take the lessons along the way and stuff.
Totally.
So now you mentioned just before about cycling a lot more of these new tracks in. How hard does that become, cycling older tracks out? And what's the decision-making process with that? Because obviously everybody has their favorites in the band, and there's fan favorites as well. How do you guys sort of navigate that decision?
You ever seen that Charlie Day meme where there's like all the
Pepe Sylvia?
Yeah, Pepe Sylvia. That's what band practice is like when we're trying to pick a set list. It's such a painful process that often ends up in us being like, oh, just fucking pick whatever you want. I don't care. And then next week you're like, no, actually, if we move this around and put this here. It's really hard when you get to like 4 or 5 albums. And you know, it kind of sucks because you'll get some people be like, this is they'll DM you and be like, it's my favorite song in the whole world. Can you please play it at this show? But now that we kind of have like production, like we don't do a lot of that, but we have, you know, a light show and stuff. You can't just kind of like scroll the set list on the back of a beer mat like before the show like we used to. You know, you kind of have to have like the thing locked in from the start of the tour and play it until the end of the tour. So you have to make commitments sometimes and say, well, you know, we've got to kind of drop this song out on this tour, but you know, it may come back. And particularly in America, we have a lot of like, we made a big following over there. Well, big for us, bigger than we ever thought we'd make off the back of that first album. And we don't really play any of that stuff anymore. So at very occasion we'll kind of break it out, but it's just a bit jarring because we're such a different sounding band now. So we play stuff from every record after that, but it's rare that we'll play stuff off Be Nothing. And that definitely kind of like bums out a lot of American fans, I think, if they've been following us for a long time. But yeah, I guess you got to stand by your convictions, you know.
For sure. And like, it's the same as, you know, like I sort of liken that to like my favorite band, Thrice, you know, are completely worlds away from where they first started. But on almost every set, they'll throw Deadbolt in, which is like a fast metal track. And they sound nothing like that through the rest of the tunes. But everyone's like, finally, they've played
exactly, yeah. And that's why I say, you know, we never like write anything off totally. Like we still occasionally perform. We'll just and stuff like festivals. You can be a bit more creative with things like that. Yeah. Or we do like every year we tend to do like a regional UK tour, so like smaller rooms and like small towns, and
cool.
Kind of have a bit more fun with that. But yeah, Thrice must have a hard time picking a set list. Like that's a dense body of work to
yeah, for sure.
Do you ever consider doing the Thrice approach of like not necessarily re-recording it, but like playing it live, but in like a newer version? Is that something that you'd be averse to, or would you be like, oh yeah, we could like do that, but in a bit more of our current styling, so it's not as jarring? It's not like, oh, we need a whole new guitar for that. We can maybe play it in this way.
To quote Australia as a whole, I'm heaps keen. I think it'd be.
Love that.
I think it'd be sick.
Well done.
I think, I one of the boys, I can't remember which one, suggested that recently, and I was like, that could be really cool because, like I said, there is bits on even the early records where you can hear us kind of like playing around with stuff that we would then pick up and kind of make more of a feature later on in our kind of band. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think definitely that'd be a really interesting exercise. And because right now, obviously, we're kind of like, everything's about Sundiver, but maybe in the future, when things are a little less kind of like album focused, that'd be a really cool thing to do. Did Thrice do that? Is that a thing that
they re-recorded The Artist in the Ambulance, and I thought it was a really cool concept because they did it because it's one of their it's most Thrice fans' favorite album of theirs. It was their seminal sort of like, they're going to be the next big crossover hardcore meets metal meets pop punk band, and they had a really shitty experience doing it apparently, and so it left like a real sour taste in their mouths about that album as a whole. So they re-recorded it as the band that, you know, they are now, to also try and, as they put it, sort of reignite a love and rediscover a love for those songs. And then they played it in full.
And they had a lot of guest features on almost every song. Was it every song?
No, there was like 5 or 6 songs.
Had a guest vocalist that like that song meant a lot to them, so they got them in and featured on that. Like Sam from Architects.
Oh, that's a wicked concept.
Yeah,
but
I've let you talk about Thrice for too long now, so we need to stop.
All right. Well, I want to ask a difficult question because you're obviously a man.
Are you going to go with the cut or keep question? Because I wanted to keep talking about something we talked about so long ago.
Okay, you do that first then.
Do you feel any pressure as the vocalist? Because you talked about before about the wanting to keep like the sound that is you guys now, and one of the things that I think makes that the case for a lot of bands is the vocalist. They're often like front and center. That's a thing that, whilst the music can kind of change and either become a bit more simplistic or heavier or faster, whatever it is, the vocal styling is what kind of keeps that band being that. Do you feel any pressure to be that anchor point for the band?
I think so. I think there's a lot of pressures that come with the vocalist anyway that are quite difficult. And I feel like I'm not a very sort of typical vocalist in that I'm not really I don't really get a great deal of enjoyment out of being front and center. Not that I'm a overly shy person. I have no interest in like fame or I also I don't think I have a particularly unique story to tell either. I just really like singing in this band, you know?
Sure.
And I think it's definitely hard to sort of also be vulnerable. I think a lot of people talk about that, but you know, write songs that are quite personal.
Yeah.
And then kind of have people, because our earlier work was a bit more kind of transparent with what the songs are about, I think. And I would get people all the time coming up to me at shows, like dumping their shit on me, like really heavy stuff, like every day of like, my mom just died and this and this. And while I was super touched that people would relate to my music and very pleased that it would offer them some solace, it was like really exhausting to kind of hear these like horrible stories every day and stuff. So I kind of stopped sort of spending as much time kind of, we got to be a bigger band, so I wouldn't kind of like hang out at the merch table or whatever after the show. But also, like, I don't know, like the music that I like the most, the lyrics are a bit more opaque in kind of what they're about, I think. You know, again, like you kind of like your Radiohead, Tom York stuff, or like, I suppose Deftones as well. Like it's pretty, it's pretty ambiguous, you know, but it still gives you like a lot of visual imagery and kind of evokes, like you can kind of get a gist of what it might be about, but you can also attribute your own kind of theories to that. And I'm into that for sure. But, yeah, I think I feel more pressure lyrically, I would say, to do the songs justice, to make it kind of genuine and not just be a load of random bullshit words that don't mean anything, and kind of keep that artistic integrity and that honesty, but without kind of like putting my whole life story out there. Because I also don't think, I don't think it's that interesting.
Do you think that like that experience in the past of having that and knowing that, you know, like that's not really the, you know, what you want to be as a frontman, as a vocalist, do you think that it's kind of forced you to approach writing your lyrics in a different way and kind of be a little bit more, for use of a better word, I guess, artistic or adventurous in how you might put some of your story into those lyrics?
100%. Yeah, definitely. It's been like a very conscious decision. And I think you can kind of track that if you listen kind of in sequence, like it because in that experience, when we listened to all the records, I kind of listened to that first album and I was like, man, this is angsty as fuck. Like I would never be able to write lyrics like this anymore. Like, and you know, I was like 20 when we wrote that record as well. So I was angsty at the time, or more angsty than I am these days. But I do think that, I think it's finding ways to be pretty with words or heavy with words without kind of being too literal.
Because esoteric.
It sounds like, what's that? Sorry,
being a bit more like esoteric about it.
Yeah, I also think that like it doesn't really it's a bit surface level when it depends. I mean, some people are really great storytellers, and I don't think I'm one of those people, but some people can take you on such a journey with the lyrics that they're like, this is the story that happened, and it's like super literal. I think that's an incredible talent, incredible skill. I don't have that. So if I am writing lyrics quite literally, then it only gives you so much to get out of the song, I feel like, from the lyrics. Sure. Whereas I feel like if you kind of give people a bit of a deeper pool of things that they can kind of like swim around and pick up and look at and then attribute their own shit to, then it kind of offers a bit more of an interesting experience. To me, anyway, that's what I get out of other artists' music that I enjoy.
You've mentioned Tom York a couple of times. Is there anyone else, like, whether it be like in literature, music, movies, or anything, like any other artists or people that you have taken inspiration from specifically in the way that they, you know, craft their lyrics or their words?
Definitely, like tons and tons. I mean, off the top of my head, like he's quite a contemporary artist, but I really love Sam Fender's writing. I think he's absolutely incredible. He's like the modern Bob Dylan for me. Bob Dylan as well. I really like Bob Dylan. But yeah, I mean, kind of loads. I read, or I used to read a lot more, but I quite like stuff like that's pretty gnarly and confusing, like Samuel Beckett or even times like a bit more gritty, like Chuck Palahniuk. Not that I emulate that style, but that way of kind of being like really almost lyrical and kind of visual with how they write things. You know, they describe things in like very specific detail, or reference kind of colors or tastes or objects that give you a feeling, and you're kind of supposed to do the work with that and add your own, you know what I mean? Like they're just playful. Playful is probably a better way of describing it, and less kind of literal. But yeah, I think some of the, I mean, people get in trouble for talking about cancelled bands, but like Brand New, I think Jesse Lacey is a fantastic lyricist, and another example of writing that can be quite visual and kind of evocative. Is that the right word? I don't know.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
but yeah,
particularly Jesse does make, like, you've touched on my other favorite. He's thrice. I'm Brand New, so I'm with you to talk about this. The lyrically, it like you can fully visualize it in your head, and it takes you, and it's very like evocative is the right word.
Totally. Yeah. I love it, and pop music as well. You know, Cranberries and Dolores O'Riordan's one of my favorite lyricists of all time. I kind of definitely used her as a lot of inspiration when writing this album, because they're just trying to make things pretty, I think, or the total opposite of that. But I don't know. I find it just comes more naturally to me than sort of being like very open about like because also like I'm quite a normal person, and I've got quite a kind of pedestrian life and a very.
Who are you trying to convince?
Yeah, you know what? As you're talking here, I'm like, I guarantee if it became a 4-hour conversation, we'd be able to find so much stuff. Like, this is a really interesting thing about me that no one
probably. Yeah. But I don't know. I think growing up reading I mean, I'm sure we're probably similar ages, growing up reading all the kind of magazines about like the rock stars and their kind of their backstory. It's always like mad gritty, and they've got like mad shit that's happened to them and stuff. And mine's like well comfortable. I'm pretty privileged, like, you know, nice childhood, you know, pretty normal teenage years, had a bunch of fun. And I can't claim to have had some kind of like deep well of trauma to draw from, I guess, is what I'm
You weren't
saying.
born from darkness.
Yeah, totally, man. Yeah. And it'd be lame if I tried to pretend that I was, I think.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't still be a very like interesting person for people. I think that's something that like more people can relate to that, because not everyone has that trauma. Like, I think being able to be like, hey, I'm a well-adjusted young man, and like that's still something that people can relate to and also aspire to be like, I want to reach that level of like normalcy, I guess, potentially. That's not a bad thing. Do you have a tough question? A dickhead question?
Don't be wrong. I could talk behind legs off the donkey about stuff that I'm interested in, but
it's not a dickhead question. I have a question that like I'm very intrigued to know, and I've been asking this to our guests of recent. You're a man with a lot of tastes, so I would like to know if you were to craft a super soldier band, who would be the members of that band? Who would you choose?
Does he have to be in the band?
No, he doesn't have to be in the band. You could manage the band, or you could just watch the band. You can be the vocalist if you want, but who would be your dream band? Who would the members be?
Oh man, I have no idea. That's such a hard question. I mean, I'd probably pick my band. I wouldn't want to be in another band. But if we're being kind of fantasy football about this,
it's a boring answer. That's basic. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Again, not to get too boring about this, I suppose it would depend on the type of band I was trying to make. But if we were just going kind of like influences that we had, I suppose I'd get somebody from Nine Inch Nails. Doesn't have to be Reznor, but somebody that's gonna just make some gnarly electronics. I would get the drummer from the band Nails to just make really crazy noises on the drums. I'd get Reba from Code Orange to play guitar, I think.
I can't believe she's playing for Manson now.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, that's random.
Crazy. Yeah.
So actually, it's a fairly industrial band you've made.
I'm noticing this. Yeah,
I'm not against
kind
it.
of in flow state, but this is how it's turning out for sure.
Okay,
so actually, on the Reba tip, I believe she is dating Greg Puciato, who is also one of my favorite vocalists. So I'm going to tap him up front, which I think is going to be really, really cool.
And also awkward when they break up.
Yeah, true. But they could yield some good creative results.
100%. Yes. Heaps of angst.
Yeah, there you go. And then, yeah, maybe someone that's going to do some crazy shit. Maybe like one of the trash talk guys to play guitar on the other side of the stage. I guess we need a bass player, but I'll put my bass player Dan in there because I think it'd be really funny to see him on stage with those people.
Just to make him uncomfortable.
Yeah, it'd be really funny. So yeah, that's going to be my band, I think, off the top of my head right now.
Okay.
That's a band I could get down with.
What do you call it?
Medical Waste.
Oh, quite like that. That's
pretty good name, isn't it?
It's a really good name. Yeah, you did?
Yeah.
How's
Actually, we've been obsessed with this band named Roman Pebbles on this tour. Dan and Mike teach at a music school, loads of kids and stuff, and are all like forming bands. So we hear all their like band names all the time, and some of them are fucking awesome. And one of them was also called Acrobatic Blood. I think it's a crazy name, and I really like it.
Yeah,
I want to hear what it sounds like, but yeah. So medical
deadly. Well, I like it. I'm down for it. I think that sounds like a really fun project. I can't wait to see it come to fruition.
Please, yeah, let's get it set up. Sure,
let's see what we can do. We'll use our internet celebrity status.
All right, dude. Well, I think we are due to wrap up, aren't we?
Yeah, we don't want to get in trouble here, but it's been a fucking delight having you on.
Oh, thank you, man. And thank you so much to you guys for supporting us for so long, because I appreciate so much. You guys have such a platform there, and I've been humbled by your kind of time you spent on our music. So thank you guys for that. And thanks for having me today. I enjoyed this conversation a lot.
Absolutely.
Likewise,
pleasure.
Man. Anytime.
And yeah, everyone that's watching this, go listen to the album. It'll be out now. So
yeah,
stream that shit.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Thanks
have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks, dude.